Ciao, everybody. I am Gianandrea Noseda, and I'm happy to be here living the classical life. And I wish you to be exposed to this fantastic art form. Ciao.
Mr. Noseda, thank you so much for being here on Living the Classical Life. It's a delight to welcome you onto the show. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
So yesterday, I had the great, exciting privilege to hear your performance at the Lincoln Center, and this was Act 2 of Tristan. And I have to begin by saying that this was, without exaggeration, one of the most powerful and exciting musical going experiences of my life. And there's a reaction that I don't have often, which is to be covered in goosebumps. And even, and this is also not a typical reaction for me, some tears. In your especially earlier life, did you have some moments where you also reacted to music in an extreme way, and this said, perhaps, that this is what I want to do in my life?
Well, it's difficult to recollect in my youth, but of course I was exposed, I approached a lot of concerts because my father, who is not a professional musician, but took me to concerts in Milano. I was born in Milano. So to La Scala, and I remember clearly a concert with Claudio Abbado conducting the Scala Orchestra and Maurizio Pollini playing as a soloist Brahms Piano Concerto No. 1. I don't remember if I was in tears, but I was incredibly moved emotionally by that performance. And after that I remember some recordings I had at home, the beginning of Matthew Passion by Bach, in the recording made by Nicolas Harnoncourt. And I remember that beginning really was bewitching me. I remember I was 12 years old, and just to hear this, I said, where this music is coming from? Who could just imagine that? And just to try to live this sadness, this mourning from the beginning. And I was already playing the piano. So little by little I thought music would have been an important part of my life. I couldn't say it would be my life also professionally, but I experienced something very emotionally charging in my youth.
So how did you go from your studies with piano and composition to developing. How did you realize that there was something of a conducting instinct brewing within yourself?
But it was very natural in my life, everything that came in talking about music, because I play piano, I studied composition and musicology, and at a certain point, because I'm a very curious person, curiosity is probably my best or worst quality, I don't know, but I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I decided also to approach music from the conducting point of view, because it's completely different from the pianist point of view, from the composer point of view. When you have a white paper in front of you, you have to write some notes, or the musicology, which means how to place a piece in the history of the music. From the conducting point of view, is slightly different. It's like to look from 4 different perspectives the same statue, the same sculpture.
Yes.
So you can just, that is what interests me a lot, so to have different angles, how to approach the same piece of music. And I did it for a personal curiosity and interest. But I have to say, after a couple of years of conducting, I was lucky because in the Milano Conservatorium, I studied there. I had also very good teachers, and also I've been very lucky with all my teachers in piano, but also in conducting. I found out a good and natural way to communicate through gestures. And it happened not very suddenly, but very unexpectedly, that I won 2 conducting competitions in the same year, international. After the second one, I thought, oh, maybe this is my way to express myself through music. But since then, I was just considering myself as a musician, so playing the piano, writing something, music, composing, conducting chorus, doing everything.
So going back to the very basic question, if you look around at the world today and everything going on in it, why are we even musicians?
I think we have an important duty today to make ourselves and people listen to each other. I think we should really re-establish this sort of normal way of relationship, that when someone is talking, someone else is listening, after that reacting. I think we have to be able to recreate bridges through cultures and tradition and different traditions, and differences in world are making the world a better place where to live. So it's important. And also, you know what I find fascinating, talking about Tristan, is 80 minutes of music from where you start the second act till the end. And you don't have a second as a conductor to relax, but even the audience. How to involve and commit the audience to stay for 80 minutes focused on something, just one thing. Where today we tend to break down our time answering to we know our lives, so messages,
Yes.
having a lot of when you are exposed to many information.
Yeah.
That is the point. So you have to react to them. Just to
Yes.
stay there, doing nothing, just listening to something written in the middle of the 19th century, and discovering how deep was this sad and beautiful story of love.
And isn't that the most amazing thing, that this simple thing, the simplest concept of sitting there quietly with your thoughts and with the art, is one of the most rare experiences that we can have in today's world?
It is today one of the most rare, just to find yourself approaching something hugely big. Also because I don't think people is interested of my words, but is interested in words of the great giants, the big composers. We are just the deliverer of the message. I like to think about myself and any performer, but talking about myself as a narrator, a storyteller. But I don't invent the story. I just take the story and I tell the story. So I think it's far more interesting to deliver this message or this story, whatever they are going to tell us, is very important. And don't forget, in a concert, you are with yourself, but you are also surrounded with people gathered there for the same occasion.
So I'm thinking about the performance psychology of the conductor, because you were also an instrumentalist, but of course with the orchestra, your instrument is the orchestra. You're backstage, about to walk on, Tristan Act 2. What's going through your mind?
The biggest part of the work is at home and alone, with the score and yourself and the pencil and eraser. So I think that is the major part of the work. And when I think I'm ready to stand in front of the orchestra, I know I needed to be 5 times more ready. So I just try really to convince myself I'm not ready enough. Even if I know the music, I can conduct, I can just go through the symphony or through the opera. But the other thing is, when you get to that point, anyway, as a performer, even if you try very strongly to get the truth of that music, you don't know if you will get ever there to the truth. You can get closer, but how you will discover, now I got exactly the idea of the composer. Now I know exactly what he or she wanted to say. You make an hypothesis, you just go closer to that idea. So it's fantastic, the research of the truth, knowing you will never get there. So in a way you have also to take not too seriously your job. I mean, it's very serious, but not to take too seriously what is your account of that piece of music. And I always joke with the librarian who takes my score, just placed on the music desk in front of me, and said, you need more time, maestro, with this score. Anyway, it's too late to learn it. So just take it, put on over. Yeah. So but in a way, there is a small truth behind this sentence. You will never know 100% what was the process in the mind of the composer, and try to absorb that to deliver to the audience. But that is what also leads me for the next time when I will do the same symphony or the same opera, I will try again. I will try again to get more, to dig more inside that music. It's a constant research.
So with all the tasks that are happening in your role as the conductor, how can you balance the procedural concerns with finding your zone of being freest and most creative? Is there room for both?
There is a room for both, and sometimes you are more focused in precision, and sometimes you think, oh, now I can risk something. So there is always a point, how much I should be faithful to the composer, how much room I have to express myself. Or if I use, sometimes that is, sometimes happens, but it's not good. Sometimes using the music to say what I want to say and not let the music speaking for itself. So this is always, where is the point? Of course, my eyes on a score is a personal view. Of course, there is me behind that. But how much room I have to express myself. I should be a servant. I should just put my talent, whatever it is, to a service of the talents of the musicians in front of me. And each talent help the other's talent to bright. And all together, at the end of the day, we should just serve the music. We should just make the music bright and to be brightest, if I say in this way. So it's always a big service. We should be really servants of the music. And for the musicians in the orchestra, for the artists of the orchestras, to what they expect from a conductor. Sometimes I ask myself, I wonder what they want from me or from any conductor. Once I asked that to an artist of the orchestra, not in Washington, but in London Symphony, and she said, oh, we want just to see if the conductor has something to offer.
Wow.
About the piece.
Wow. Okay.
That if has something to offer, doesn't matter if we agree or we disagree, something, just because he spent time with the music. That is what opened a little bit the window in my mind.
I'm trying to get a sense of the sound of an orchestra under a specific conductor. I'm thinking of the Vienna Philharmonic sounded different under Furtwängler than it did under Bernstein. I could detect that there was a distinctive sound of the National Symphony Orchestra under you, as, for example, compared to recordings of them with Rostropovich. They are not playing the instrument. What accounts for these differences, these identifiable differences in the sound? Is it your personality?
Yeah, there is this kind of element of mystery in conducting that I don't even like to consider, because it depends of your movement, your body language, your physicality, your way to address with people, sometimes the way you look at people asking, begging for something. But first of all, you should have the sound you wish to get from the orchestra in your mind, in your heart. If you don't have that imagination, it's difficult to get that result from the orchestra, because on which basis you ask them to play louder, softer, or just to be underneath the woodwinds, or just, it's incredible. You have to have the most precise sound before you produce it. And during the rehearsals, try to adjust that to keep it, to take the orchestra closest to this idea you have. Sometimes orchestras, they are producing a better sound they have in my head. In that case, I take it. I'm not going to put the level down. But from that basis, I have to reconsider all my structure of sound. It's incredible how sometimes to emphasize the woodwinds, instead of asking them play louder, you have to ask the double basses to sustain longer the sound. And you don't even tell the woodwinds you want them to be more a protagonist, more responsible, and immediately you find that the sound is just raising in the way you want. That is also due to experience. So sometimes to get the result, you should not get right on the point, but you have to work around, and everything will just like blossoming the flower. No, you don't go to the flower. You say now the petal goes this. No, you just give water, you put under the light, and little by little, very naturally, the flower is blossoming. It's a little bit the same process. Sometimes you have to correct technical mistakes, but that is the first step of the conducting. So, okay, the wrong note, a mistake, but most of the time, a musician recognizes immediately he made a mistake. So there is not a point to wait. So you just look in the eyes, is just mutually understood. You don't even say a word. So, it's always this kind of giving and getting back. Is this exchange of energy.
Do you feel that your growth as a musician has been more or less linear? I'm thinking of a story of the 19-year-old Franz Liszt. 1830 in Paris, he went to go hear the debut of Niccolò Paganini. And he was thunderstruck. He wanted to become the Paganini of the piano, but then shortly around then he also heard Chopin and decided that this was another profound rethinking of who he wanted to become musically, as in finding greater depth and poetry. Were there certain musical influences that you encountered in your life that caused you to either be profoundly influenced or even changed your thought as to what kind of musician you want to become?
Oh, there are many examples, of course. Also because in your questions, there are two elements that come out. So the precision and the flamboyancy of the virtuosity, and the depth of conception with technical skills, Chopin versus Paganini, and both were great artists.
Both.
So as a conductor, I go more for a precision, so I go more from the verticality, or I go more for the horizontal lines where actually they are together, but I take more care of this instead of this. Or sometimes I have to take care of this, or sometimes I have to take care of that. So what is important? I think I was very much in love in my early age with Toscanini because, of course, because he's an Italian conductor and very famous. Also, he made a huge career here in America for the modernity of his approach to music. Very very severe, very precise, very brisk tempos, huge control. The same way for Wagner, the opposite, more horizontal lines, not always incredibly precise, but some magic was coming out from there. So how to combine the two things? To be this and without losing this. And of course, Kleiber was a genius of that, and also how he was able to paint the music through gesture, being perfectly technically precise, but also how to show to the orchestra. And also I was fascinated by when I was a teenager by the two giants, Leonard Bernstein and Herbert von Karajan, also very different. One more extroverted, Leonard Bernstein, one more introverted. Karajan, always conducting with closed eyes, with this kind of intensity. So that means Lenny Bernstein was less intense than Karajan. No, they got result, high quality result in two different ways. So that was very clear to me. The important thing, I go back to my real topic, is just to serve the music, and you have to find your way. Also because physicality for a conductor is important. If you are tall, if you are short, you have long arms, you have short arms, you are skin, you are a little bit more imposed as a person, your body language changes. A short conductor is very good rhythmically. I have very long arms. I had to work very hard to have a very precise indication for Rite of Spring or Petrushka. Now I can do it, but I had to work very hard. To show something legato for me has been always natural because I have very long arms and I can do this. And maybe for one with shorter arms, it's more difficult to show this, to show this kind of continuity, like showing waves of sound. So it's also connected with your body language, with your way to talk, with your tone, asking things, your way to look. It's always, everything helps to make music. Sometimes Kleiber was also looking his left hand conducting, yes. Just like this. I was just doing, especially in the Strauss valses, incredible. The concert was, I think, 88.
88, 89.
And, yeah, but the one in 1988 was incredible. The virtuosity of the gestures and the natural way. You couldn't expect anything different from the orchestra because everything was there. That was probably the most shocking experience looking at the conductor. I didn't have even the idea to become a conductor, but I thought that is a magician. This is a sort of out of this world. I was only 14 years old, so I didn't have the technical elements to judge, but everything was so natural, so perfect. I didn't even thought about technique, sound. Everything was just one thing, one big thing.
So here we are talking about prominent performers, technique, gesture. How can we convince each new generation of audiences that they have to listen? I happen to know that ticket sales at the National Symphony have gone up, and I know that you've done this in specific ways. How do you reach a community?
Of course, I didn't invent anything, but in my previous 2 seasons there, I took the orchestra to Union Station in Washington. We just go to the Anthem Theater where they usually perform rock music and folk music, and 3 times a year we take a shorter version of a classical music program with the orchestra, being dressed with jeans, so not in the concert dress, so more informal. And I personally I went already in 4 different schools in Washington, D.C. to make half an hour, 1 hour rehearsal with the kids' orchestras. I did a Brahms Second Symphony first movement with the kids from 9 till 11 years old. Of course, they were not able to play, but they tried, and they loved that. And after that, I had half an hour Q&A, so question and answers. And I remember a question one small kid asked me, but Did you have always, maestro, the passion, or just was growing through your career?
That's an interesting question.
Well, that's very specific ones. And also what I find interesting is just to devote 2-3 weeks of my time in a year to go to conduct youth orchestras. They already made the decision to become professionals, but to make music with 16, 17, 18 years old, talented musicians, so the European Union Youth Orchestra. Now I started in September the Pan-Caucasian Youth Orchestra in Georgia, ex-Soviet Union. I've done already the Young Orchestra of Italy, the Young Orchestra of Spain, the Young Orchestra of UK. I think it's important to give them this, to pass what you have been learning all your life to the next generation. If you work with this, they have many friends with this young professional. They have youngsters as friends. They go out to have something, to have fun, to eat, to drink. So if you just work with them, they will get the way, they will infect their friends to come and follow them. More than if I go to tell them, come to the concert, they will invite their friends to the concert. So it's always a long process. I go to the university, I went to the university twice in Washington to talk to the 20, 21 years old people, and they were asking me, and they came to the concert, and they started, a few of them, to come regularly. You have to invest time. You don't have just to sit on your sort of cathedral and to expect and to wait for people coming where you are. You have also sometimes to bring the music where people are.
Tell me about the inaugural music festival in Georgia and the orchestra there, because speaking of friendships, it seems like there are some unlikely ones there.
Oh, there I accepted the music directorship of the Zinandali Festival in Georgia because of this idea of creating a Pan-Caucasian youth orchestra. And that is a fantastic project because the orchestra is made selecting musicians from all countries that have a connection with the Caucasian mountains. So we have Turkey, we have Armenians, we have Turkish, we have Georgians, we have Azerbaijan people, we have Ukraine, we have Kazakhstan. Armenian and Turkish are not friendly. I mean, Armenians, Azerbaijan people. So just to have them and to make music, just to play together. And when I arrived there the first day, they just were not very, they played together, but with some distance. But after the last concert, seeing them giving hugs, embracing each other, and try to demolish all the walls constructed in their minds, that was the best result I got there, despite the fact that they produce good music. And the age is from 18 till 26, so it's a crucial age to try to pass to them such values like respect, friendship, tolerance. For what? To make music together, for a bigger aim, which is the music.
Okay, so that's the musicians finding those connections. Do you think that also translates to some response in the audiences as well?
Yes, of course. It will take long, of course. It will also infect the politicians there. But of course, you have to expect this generation to get to the power. So probably is a long-term investment. Maybe it will take 2 generations. That means a lot of time. But if we don't start, it's just useless to say, oh, why things? Do your job, do whatever is in your power to do. And of course, the result will be seen. Maybe when I will not be here in 300 years' time, I will be somewhere else. So I don't know where. But probably I will have helped to change things.
Do you find yourself drawn more or most to a certain kind of repertoire?
I go back to curiosity. I like everything. I mean, I don't touch too much Baroque music because I think many colleagues of mine will do a better job than myself, so there is no reason. But for personal interest, when I listen to music or just I go back very rarely to the piano, to the keyboards. I try to play Bach, Scarlatti, this kind of music, or just to study choral music from Josquin des Prez or Kegem. So even if I don't conduct this music, I like to approach it, to face this music. But if you ask me particular repertoire, I think the music, all the music composed in periods of transition. So from classicism to romanticism, from pre-industrial era to the industrial era, from before Russian Revolution, after, all the music composed in a very crucial moment of the history of the mankind. So all the music composed just before World War I. The music composed between World War I and World War II, what was happening socially, politically, why the artists and the composers were warning everybody of us composing that music. That gives me an extra interest to try. For instance, I never consider Beethoven a classic composer, neither a romantic composer. Beethoven is Beethoven. It's like New York is not America, it's New York. I mean, you know, Rome is not Italy, it's Rome. So there are some cities that are for itself something, you know, important. And Beethoven is the same for me. Sometimes Verdi, sometimes Shostakovich, because they were able to change the society where they lived in. The society when Beethoven was born was completely different when he died. And he just cooperated a lot to change it. Verdi, when he was born, Italy was made by many small states. When he died in 1901, Italy was one country. Of course, not everything was done, but you know, and he worked very hard to make that happen. It was not just looking and taking for granted what was going on. Shostakovich the same. So I think it's important to consider also composers from the artistic point of view, but from historical legacy they left behind.
Here's an idea that I've been exploring recently. So you as a conductor, or conductors in general, it seems people expect confidence and charisma. And of course, we as sensitive human beings who are artists have vulnerability in our lives as well. Does the conductor have to conceal this or hide it?
I don't have the truth in my pocket. And sometimes people want to see a conductor with this kind of confidence. We are in constant research. We are in constant wonder what is going to happen in our music making, what is surrounding us. So we are human beings, and we live with our artistry. But I don't think the conductor should be put on the pedestal, you know, just to put over there like a statue. We need to be more approachable as artists, just, you know, and not to have people taking the others very far from us. No, I think is over the era of the myth of the conductors or the big performers. I consider myself a musician among musicians. And without the artist of the orchestra, I know I am zero. I am null. Even if now I conduct in the most beautiful way, I have the sound in my head, and I do this fantastic gesture because I think it's very expressive now, but if I don't have an orchestra, nothing happens.
Finally, I'm curious to know what's inspiring you these days in your life?
I like to listen to the young generation, especially the kids. They don't have any barrier. They always say the truth. And I try not to consider them, okay, it's a kid thing, no? I don't have kids, I don't have children, so just looking at my nephews or just the sons of my friends, pay attention of the new generation and take care of the old generation. Take care of the elder people and pay attention of the young. Because in between, we can do our job, we can survive. But just taking care of the limit of our lives, the beginning and the end, that is important. So I think I'm more sensitive now. I'm 55 now, so I think it's important to consider this part. And life is a gift. is a gift given to us. And we have to appreciate that and to share the beauty we learned with the widest possible people. I think this is what is driving me today.
Mr. Noseda, thank you so much for joining us on the show. It was a pleasure to speak about life and music, and I wish you much continued success.
Thank you. It's been a great pleasure. You're welcome.
Thank you. Awesome. It was fun. Yes.